Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. The meeting will be starting shortly. While we wait, let's learn more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
with a roll call. So I guess we'll start with Peter Lennon, roll call.
Here.
Mark Layton.
Here.
Rob Corson. Chris Weeks is here, and Amanda Kelly is not going to be attending tonight. She was unable to attend. And Bob Glowacki said, going forward, we can probably work in the Zoom attendee in this room if we need to. So if we don't get the upstairs room, we can also have her attend remotely down here. So let's jump into our first item, meeting minutes. So we have a couple meeting minutes to approve, one from June 3rd and one from the last meeting, July 1st. So did anybody have any comments on the June 3rd? I was not in attendance, so I won't vote on that one.
I just had two minor corrections.
Okay.
Under the bullet number 3, working session on the FCA, line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It says, Mr. Lennon said the CIP has a dollar limit of around $25,000, and it actually should be lower dollar limit. I'm pretty confident that that's the threshold above which you're in a CIP. So
Okay, so under point
point 3.
Yep, I see it. Mr. Lennon said the CIP has a dollar limit of around 25,000?
Yeah.
So what should it be?
It should be a lower dollar limit
It's
of
a lower dollar limit.
25,000.
25,000. Okay. I just want to make this clear so that our
Right.
recording secretary knows what to change.
Right, and then in the next line, usually anything above that goes into the, and then insert the word CIP, comma, the budget, or on the warrant,
Goes into the CIP,
comma, the budget,
comma,
or on the
or
warrant.
on the warrant.
And then,
So it could go into any of those three
Yeah.
items. Okay.
unless Dave corrects me.
Will the CIP ultimately gets on the warrant or not? What's
It depends on when.
discrepancy?
It depends on which fiscal year they ask for the
So
budget.
it goes into the CIP, it can stay in there for years,
Right.
and then at some point it'll get on the warrant, or
Right.
not? Okay.
And then under other business on page 3, line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where it says Lennon said ADA compliance is in the budget every year, I said it's not in the budget every year.
Okay. I forget, page 3.
Page 3, other business, line 1, 2, 3,
Other business.
4,
Oh,
5.
Item 4, other business. Okay, got it.
Lennon said ADA compliance is, and the word that was dropped is not.
Okay.
It's not in the budget every year.
Gotcha.
And that's it. And I wasn't here for the last meeting, so I don't.
Well, let's stick with June 3rd first. Anybody else have
So I
any?
so move that we accept the minutes as amended by Peter's comments.
I'll let you guys do that. Is there a second?
Second.
How do you vote, Rob?
All in favor, aye.
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 Okay, so the vote is 3-0 by the attending members who were there to accept the meetings as amended by Peter. And hopefully, Joanna, you can catch those edits. If not, reach out to us for
Right.
clarification. All right, let's move on to the July 1st minutes, last meeting. I just read through those. I didn't have any comments on those. Does anyone else have any comments on the July 1st minutes?
No.
I wasn't here, but it sounded like it was a good meeting. Sorry I missed it.
They're
Yeah.
all good, Peter. They're all good.
I make a motion, we move the meeting minutes to accept the meeting minutes from the July 1st meeting.
Yeah, I second that, so. All in favor, or can we do that all in favor, aye, or are we supposed to do an individual roll vote?
Am I even allowed to vote, or do I abstain on that one?
You weren't here, right?
Right.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, so
I'll abstain.
the July 1st minutes are accepted as is by a vote of 3-0, with Peter Lennon abstaining.
Gotta like these, that minutes being generated by somebody watching the
It's
video.
Yeah,
wonderful.
right.
I mean, she's really good at it,
Yep.
too.
Yeah.
Like, she just gets
Yeah.
right to the meat of it, you know, she doesn't carry any of our idiotic comments or anything.
Yep. Is there any way, and if
Strikes
the,
that one out.
yeah, right.
I'm confident.
Ah, you.
So can you, I don't know when you get the minutes, Chris.
Yeah.
I know she does minutes for a bunch of other places.
Now, she's pretty quick on the turnaround. If anything, I might be the bottleneck. If we're
Okay.
not getting them in a timely manner.
If
I'll
it's at all
be-
possible to get them a little bit sooner, and I'm not going to define
It
that.
should be possible to get them much sooner.
But if it's a problem, I'll
The last
live with it.
meeting, the last time I forwarded them for the July 1st meeting, she was on vacation, so she didn't
Yeah,
get them
yeah.
out quickly. But before that, any bottlenecks were solely on.
And not an
my
issue.
behalf.
It's a question.
No, agreed. Yeah, so I will try to do better at distributing them in a timely manner
Or you could just ask her.
to send them to everybody. Yeah, I
Yeah.
could. Yep, that's true. Because all I'm doing is forwarding whatever
Yeah.
she sends. So, yeah, that's probably what we'll do. We'll just have Joanna send them to all of the facility committee members. So we're on to old business. Milestone review is our first item. I know the last meeting, Rob, we had mentioned going back to a format for the agenda. I didn't have time.
Nope, that's fine, I think it's,
We'll get there. Is that the one where we had it like set up in a spreadsheet?
I
and
guess,
there were
yeah, I don't
columns?
really care how, it could be just like this, it could just, literally could be just, you know,
Okay.
like you have here, it could be literally just list a number of items.
Oh, all right.
Just more open items, or
As
just.
long as, and if there's ever an item, just leave it on there? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that instead of having items disappear, or if they're standing items, so like, you know, milestone review, we talked about using that as a, really every meeting, kind of just going over, just saying,
Mhm.
are there any other milestones that we need to hit? The
Yeah.
answer could be either yes or no. If there aren't any,
Right.
then there's no discussion. If there are, then we can have a discussion.
All right.
Well, and I would just to build, I would suggest that on the milestones, though, we do have the ones that we're working towards, like, so that we
Yep,
can just
okay.
refresh, like, you know, what the town budget process, that if we're gonna be involved in it, you know, just so we keep that in.
Yes, so we
Yeah.
know what we're working towards.
Yeah.
So it's milestones on projects as well as milestones for our actions.
Yeah, you had, I don't know if it was you, Peter, or
Well,
somebody
that
had
pull
developed
up.
the flows.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that
one.
one. Yeah, that's it, okay.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, I
good.
mean, if we just wanna I would suggest that you just can send that out with the agenda, you know, and we just have that as a standing
Yeah,
item,
I
like
mean,
it's
this
like.
is shared for everyone to see too, so.
That's true, I keep forgetting that we have that shared, yeah, that's true.
I'm too used to this virtual meeting where you share whatever you have on your screen.
Right.
You can, you can just.
I'm not sure how to do it here. I'd pop it up there and we can all.
It's just a Wi-Fi, it's just wireless, it's a wireless connection.
That's wireless?
Yep, so you can go there and it's
It
actually.
looks like it's hardwired into the.
No, you can actually get to a,
Do you want me to?
Wi-Fi.
Well, they have an HDMI cable that's plugged in. I can just plug that into mine.
I don't need to, I mean, we
You
can
don't-
just walk
okay.
through, I mean, I think, and so you're right.
I know,
keep
we can either
forgetting.
print it out or we can send the link around too. Well, we could, in the agenda, I could have the permanent link to this sheet because we all have this.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go, you can do that,
That's
or even
fine.
if we wanna look at like, you know, like we do in construction projects, right, you're looking at 3 weeks looking ahead, or you can look at
Yeah,
it.
3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, maybe there's something we wanna, milestone, we just say, I don't want to put more work
No,
on
yeah,
you.
we'll include the link and then like you say,
Yeah.
if there's the hot button items that we should be looking at now.
Yeah.
You know, versus, we don't need to look at something that's gonna happen in November or something.
Right.
But,
Right, so one would be like the RFP process for the public safety complex, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Dave's developing that schedule now,
Has he
so.
reviewed the submissions yet?
I have it on my
A lot of reading.
home
That was a
office.
lot of reading.
There.
All right.
Never mind, it was tomorrow.
So the first item.
Never mind.
So, by the way,
If you
just
need to
on,
throw me some, let me know. So.
on the milestones that were on there for the committee's actions, nobody ever I mean, it's been out there for months. Nobody's come up on the net that said, no, that's the wrong date, or we need to move that, or that causes a problem for Dave or Russ or whatever. So I guess we have to assume that that's accurate.
I'm sorry, what's that?
That's all right.
I'm just doing some IT work here.
Yeah.
So we can look at this on the board.
The flow chart milestones that were primarily based on the committee's actions, and when it intersected with the budget process, nobody gave me any QC on any of that stuff.
Yep.
And nobody said you got the date wrong, or that's too aggressive, or that's not aggressive enough, humma, 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 humma. So unless we get any feedback, then that's what we got.
Correct.
And I'm happy with that. But if I miss something or something needs to change, then especially from the town end, if Dave or Russ think something is wrong or needs to change, then they need to get to us, because some of this stuff is like, by July 30 or by mid-July, we're supposed to do stuff. And
Okay, yeah.
and it's mid-July, and we haven't done it. And I'm not saying that's bad, I'm just saying, as things go along, as we get busy doing other stuff, for any of this stuff to stay current or still relevant, we have to adjust it.
Yeah.
And then we have to decide whether or not we still want to do that task. And again, I'm not urging that, I'm just laying it out there.
No, that's true, and Peter, you've done the most work on this, so yeah, it should be up to us, the rest of us, to help QC it and verify what's in there.
And Dave and Russ have been so busy that I'm sure they lost sight of it. But
Yeah, I don't think you guys have done the,
We gave it to you. You sent that out.
Yeah, this is representative of the list you guys, dates you said.
Oh, yeah.
This is all accurate.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
And it just, when I handed out and sent out to those who weren't there, I
Yeah.
handed it out the
CIP stuff.
CIP
Yeah, absolutely.
facilities. I didn't give you the vehicles. and all
Right,
that
right.
stuff, But I gave you those, so, yeah, mid-July, we can still.
Okay,
well,
good.
July for a little while, if you want to provide any comments.
I just wanted to make sure that I hadn't overstepped or
No,
not.
that's fine. And then the key one, I think, is by August 6th, if recommendations to the planning board.
okay.
So we gotta get going
Yeah.
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 on
Yeah,
the
it's-
CIP.
Yep.
They have the hearing on they have the presentation on the 12th, and it's in draft form, the planning board. Here's from all the department heads. But then we give it an opportunity for everyone to hear it, and then the next meeting, August 26th, is the public hearing. And people come and say, and then they usually adopt it that evening, sometimes not.
So, and we did not put in the August 26th date because I wasn't smart enough to remember that. So theoretically, we could wait until then just before the public hearing to put our inputs in if we don't get it done by the 6th.
What was the 26th?
These two would be the 26th.
Oh, okay.
The
Instead
both
of
of
the
these,
12th?
because the CIP hearing is the 26th.
Okay.
PB votes on the CIP. But then in between August 6th and August 26th, you could put a line saying August 12th, department heads present CIP. Just so you know, it's really, it's no action.
Well,
We can watch it, I mean, we should.
yeah, we could listen to that. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah, I was just gonna say, of course, meaning we could, so that's August 12th
Present
is.
CIP. Present CIP with
We have to ask ourselves whether we want to give inputs. Whether we want to get inputs from the department heads and give input to the planning board, either at the same time the department heads do or sooner or after. Because by August 26th, even though that could theoretically be our last minute to submit views, the longer the planning board has them, it's better for them to understand them, or if they have questions about them, we can try to answer those. And if whatever we're doing is at variance with what the department heads want, then we may need to go back and forth to the department heads to see whether there's some, reasonable compromise or whatever. So that's all, swirling around in those dates. And again, I guess Dave, I can't read it because I didn't bring my copy. Sorry. Well, the mid-July dates were the FAC and the department heads and the maintenance supervisor meeting, which we haven't had, and then the other one is the what? What's the one right under that one?
FAC gives project recommendations to town manager and town planner.
Right. So if we want to influence what the town manager and the town planner do to give something to the planning board, then we have to do it before that date, because obviously we can adjust in real time, as we did when we talked about the funding for the public safety complex before, and we were able to incorporate it in, and Dave was able to put it into the CIP program and get it to the planning board at our recommendation. So if there's a chance to do that, we need to do that before the 30th.
Yeah,
Time's a wasting, unfortunately.
yeah, that's a tough one.
And, you know, those are goals, those are objectives. We can try to be flexible. I mean, you know,
I mean, we're just advisory too, right? So, yeah, we would minimize the work so that we can just, the way I'm thinking of it, I'm just thinking about as far as just trying to be almost a fly on the wall process, but then still be able to give, to ask questions. I mean, when departments are presenting the planning, we would just be part of the public process.
Yeah.
They do open up to the public, right? Public allowed to
Well,
comment.
usually public isn't even there, and if public is there, I'm sure they will.
I mean, could we be there to be part, not be part of the planning board process, but be asking questions?
I think it's up to the planning board, but I don't see why not. I mean, they always welcome input. Usually it's they don't get a lot of
yeah.
fanfare at that one.
We know the feeling.
Yeah.
We don't get a lot of attention on this.
Mark, I think we have to consider, again, whether it's too late to actually have maximum input and impact on the planning board if we wait until that long. A. B, I don't know how we do our job without having a separate meeting with one person who can speak for all the departments or the departments, to have them each go over their particular CIP project. Because otherwise we're going to get into this endless back and forth. We're not going to get the information we want, even though we've asked for it several times. And we're sort of back repeating history of what happened this year.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I guess also it won't be like here, so if it's in the planning board forum and we're asking, suggesting that we should be asking, these are the questions that we're asking from the planning boards, and maybe it just gives them a little bit more power too, that it's incorporated, that it's, I don't understand what you're saying, Peter, but I'm also just, I guess I'm sensitive to the department head that's going to present the planning board for advisory.
Well,
How do we streamline the process? I understand what you're saying.
Right, now, the planning board, all these department heads, in essence, testify to the Budget Recommendations Committee, which is only advisory as well. So they have dedicated meetings on the subcommittee level with each of the department heads to hear about stuff, not only in the line item operational budget, but also in the CIP programs.
Yeah.
And they have hearings.
But
Where they
established.
what?
They're more well established.
Well,
That's after the planning board.
Yeah, but my point is that the Budget Recommendations Committee, I don't care whether it goes back to 1847 or not, is no more or less institutionally responsible for its advice as we are. And if we want to establish ourselves or maintain the record we have established, that we are no less than any other committee in town on advisory matters related to facilities.
I agree with that, to a point.
Then,
But they're part of the process too. Like they're ingrained into the
Yeah.
But we're-
process.
right, but
We're
we-
not there yet.
well, okay
If
then.
we want to get there,
And-
sure.
And that's what I'm arguing is that the more we push off being ingrained in the process as early as possible, the harder it is to do our job each year, and the harder it is to make an impact on the boards that follow us. So if we decide we want to wait until after certain things are done, I mean, I'll go with the majority of the committee, but the later it is, the less impact we have. And I think you can look at the way the planning board worked last time. They didn't really ask a heck of a lot of questions, even of us.
Yeah, I don't recall any.
And they were happy that Dave provided an amended sheet to them, so they could just sort of say, looks good, got it, it's less than $450,000, it's $200,000.
So for the August 26th, this is really just to kick off and the kind of the summation of what the department heads are proposing for the 2022. Is that correct?
Kind of. The budget and the CIP are two.
Right, yeah.
The planning board, yeah, it is. I mean, we're in the start of the process. The planning board meets on the 12th to have the department heads present they haven't, you know, you folks have more information right now than Suzanne and
Yeah.
but I've given you the facilities, which I don't know. So you have that information. Then we go on the April 12th, we have a thing, and I'm thinking what I'm hearing now, maybe you're part of it. I mean, potentially I could add the chair for a joint. Come and answer, you know, ask questions, because you're sitting there, you're getting feedback. Then they don't take any action. Then they table the CIP until the 26th. And then we schedule a public hearing before the regular meeting, very rarely do. But, you know, then we have a public hearing, and then we come again, and speak to that, and then they, you know, take action. So, but then that's just, yeah, then it's like, okay, this is the capital improvement program that identify the needs. They don't prioritize it based on the budget, or finances, they just say, okay, we agree that these are needs for the town. That's it. Then it goes on to get, you know, decided with the financials, budget review committee, town managers, select board, and all.
Yeah, so, I mean,
That's how I,
Right, so it is, so, I mean, how much effort do we need to put in planning board, where it should be part of the process, we can provide comments, but then the next step is really with budget recommendations committee, and then ultimately with the select board of what we really want our.
true, but I would prefer the facilities advisory committee and the planning board to be on the same page. If you have an issue with one of the ones, you know, like something, and you think it should be X and it's Y, then planning board should know that, because they could make it, they just, you know, they can put it in Y, and then as it moves forward, it's Y.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So,
start to think of it.
Yeah, I,
Got it.
especially with
So I think
facilities.
it probably makes sense to have a more of an open meeting to discuss these items and then look at them. That's my recommendation, is the 12th, because really the key.
So be part of that, be there.
If the planning board allows us to do that.
I would-
And then the 26th ultimately would be, is if everyone's in agreement on the 12th, the 26th agreement, you go to the 26th, they basically will have a public meeting to approve ultimately what they decide on the 12th.
So if we go to the 12th, we can generate our comments, and provide
Ask
something
questions.
formal, ask questions, so we can provide something to the planning board formally.
That would be our opportunity to meet with the department heads.
Yeah.
And
Correct, you don't, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, so we were attending the same.
And you're not any behind.
Right.
You're not
Yeah, yeah.
behind the planning board.
So we attend go ahead, Peter.
No, you finish.
I'm just rehashing again, just so I'm clear. So we get prepared to go to the 12th, and, you know, we can obviously be ready for that. We're part of the process, and then we can come up with a formal review letter or something for the planning board in advance of the 26th, and then be part of that. When they do their formal, because that's when they're approving something, right? Will they, after the 12th, based on that, will they get something submitted, revised to them and resubmitted?
If it needs to be revised, it's
Okay.
revised.
So there's an opportunity to change the CIP sheets.
Correct, that's the purpose of the 12th.
Excellent.
Is it's a draft, then it gets changed, if it's changed.
Yeah, right.
They're like, oh, we like everything, then it doesn't get changed, and we bring it back on the 26th, have a public
Got it.
hearing, invite the public in to comment,
Okay.
hear the comment, and then they don't have to approve it on the 26th. It
Right.
could go, a couple times since I've been here, it goes to the first meeting in September. I mean, so as long as I think it's September 30th, it goes.
And so you guys think that we shouldn't meet with any of the department heads to ask questions of them before the 12th? I'm just asking, I'm not making an editorial statement.
We're
just thinking
thinking
time.
that that's our best opportunity to get in front of them, because trying to get them in front of us and the planning board at separate times, I'm not sure how realistic that is.
Okay,
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm thinking that, but it's also August 12th is around the corner, right? It's less than a month away.
Well,
Yeah.
our next
So-
meeting after this would be August 2nd, so maybe at that meeting, we could discuss, you know, we can review the CIP, discuss
Yeah.
what kind of
Yeah.
questions we might have, and then I guess we'll all attend the August 12th meeting
Mhm.
and the 26th meeting, so I guess we'll, you know, so in lieu of the third week of August, we'll go to those two meetings.
yeah.
I mean, this is our first year really getting involved in this, so.
Yeah, I was gonna
it's
say, I know we don't wanna fall further behind, but this year, actually, on the plus side, Peter, is we're getting ahead of the game farther than we've ever been.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
before. And that's just a result of us every year getting incrementally better.
Yeah.
at this stuff.
But it's also, it's a planning board process, right? So,
Yeah.
they may not agree with our comments, and they take a different
Sure,
path.
yeah,
right.
But then we have another option with budget
Right.
recommendations, then we have another option with select board, so we have
Correct.
a couple avenues beyond this that we can
Right.
still continue to
Right.
work.
And I would like to have a goal of it becoming, for that August 12th meeting, whenever it is every year, that it be recognized as a planning board and FAC process. Because I don't want it to be sort of, ultimately, I don't want it to be from a kind of buy your leave from the planning board that they let us ask questions. Because we're supposed to, by our charge, we're supposed to, advise them. But that's something we just work out, as we go along.
Right.
And then the other thing is, not to task ourselves, but to ask you guys whether we should task ourselves so that at the August 2nd meeting, we've got a draft of questions about these projects that we can all chat about. And we can, send them around. We can give them to Chris, and Chris can decide when he wants to distribute them in advance so there's a whole package.
Sounds good. So
All right.
as far
Like
as, I think that's productive. So as far as our milestone chart here, we're not going to give any recommendations to Russ and Dave in mid-July. We're going to start working towards our CIP comments for the planning board meeting, okay?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a way to strike.
I would tell you what, I would leave that and put in parentheses so that next year we decide whether or not we want to do any of that.
Oh, we'll hear them, August.
Oh, no,
August 12th.
no, I understand it,
Yeah,
but I don't want to lose sight of that interim step.
Yeah.
It's just that we're not going to do it this year. That's all.
No, I think you will, it's just, I was
Oh,
going to
yeah,
change
right.
the date to August 12th because
I see.
both Russ and I are there.
Okay,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
Well,
and
yeah.
I get it for next year to
This
do
was
it earlier,
Yeah,
but
this
Okay.
was an
Yeah.
additional step before the.
we
planning
will
board.
hear your comment.
No, I appreciate that.
So as far as the August 6th, we're not going to send any CIP recs to the planning board, or are we going, or is that, Peter, where you're saying we should put a package together that we give to the planning board prior to the August 12th meeting?
I hadn't even thought of that. No, I guess I thought, first of all, that we would all come with our questions to our FAC meeting on August the 2nd.
Okay?
And then
Yep.
we would agree that those are the questions that ought to be pursued. And then we consider sending them not only to the planning board as a list of questions we'd like to raise, but in fairness to the departments, we send them to the departments so that they either are, so they're not sitting there going, oh, well, we have to get back to you because we don't know it. So that they can have that in the back pocket.
Yeah.
So, and we're not surprising them. I don't want anybody to think we're dry gulching them or whatever the term of art is.
All right.
So August 2nd is sort of where we figure all of that out
All right.
as to
If
what.
we're ready, we can share it, right? If we're ready, if we're not, then we're
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Bring it to the 12th.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if we can get them, I mean, I think you're right, it'll be a benefit to everybody to get it to.
This is these are the initial ones are really the 10,000 foot view of things. And
Yeah.
I would assume that this is a kind of training you get towards the, the budget and the actual numbers and,
Yeah, I mean, it is with a couple of exceptions for me.
yeah.
And that is if there's major changes in a project and the changes are in the details, but they drive the cost and they drive the schedule and they affect the need, then it might not be just a 10,000 foot view on the questions. In the same way that if they've not provided updated information on something that we think is important, that's below the 10,000 foot level, I think we should ask them that.
So this is probably more of a preparation for future times, but it means the narrative that's part of this sheet
Right.
needs to be descriptive enough to outline the goals of the project with the or the why we're doing it, and then so that when that goal should be updated as any project advances through the process, so that you have a beginning statement. So like working for the VA, every time you do a submission, you have to do a new narrative.
Right.
A new narrative has, yes.
Right.
Yeah, so the narrative that's on here.
Right. And they were pretty thin on those pages, if I
Right.
remember correctly.
They were, yeah. So these narratives really should be pretty descriptive. As you go on,
Right.
they should be more emboldened about, or more information should be here about what that project is.
And especially for the old, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
especially if it's a project that's been around last year, because they have an obligation to keep all of the information. I personally believe they have an obligation to keep all of the information in that's still relevant for the project, and then to update any information, significant information that changes.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It should be a process in which, if it's going to be a CIP, and the CIP is intended to be a multi-year process in which you're evaluating projects, and as you gain more information about them, you should have that information, if it informs the project more by saying it's either more scope, less scope, whatever it is.
Right.
But and also our comments may help that process though,
Yeah.
too, right? Because if it's very thin and we have all these questions, then when they answer those questions, that this will help us develop the documents, right? I mean, right would be the help, right? That's the way it should go,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, theoretically.
Right, yeah. I mean, if we're asking these questions, then that's, we're not going to be able, should be the only one asking.
And Dave and Russ are going to have to figure out, when some of the departments stiff arm us, how the information is going to be
I
provided.
never do that.
No, you're absolutely correct. When the departments assign a different priority to the need to inform the Facilities Advisory Committee, which informs the Select Board and the Budget Recommendations Committee and the Planning Board of information about the project, when they should get it to us.
Yeah.
So Dave, these are the ones you handed out, and these are still, this is still it, right? If we start reviewing
Yeah.
them, that's it, okay. I don't know if it had changed already.
Yeah, there might be some, Rec cleaned up some typos and so forth.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah.
those are, the projects haven't changed. And we asked for a little bit more description on a couple, and it's like an actual scope.
Okay.
You know, and haven't gotten that. Well, we just met, us and I met, came back from vacation, but yesterday. With DPW went back and we asked for a little bit more info, but we don't have that.
When you
So
get it,
it's-
you send it to
This
us.
goes back to our comment last time, is that I'm going to pull together what I have from when I was at the hospital, the project start form, which is kind of what you say, when a group comes to, they have, here's a series
Oh,
of
yeah.
questions that they had to answer as part of that series of questions. And mine would be a lot, could be a lot less, but the reality is it was nice to have these sets of questions, because it quickly tells you some of the things that you want to know. Are you adding new staff? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Are you changing your program? Are you doing, what other items are on there that would be ticklers might have an impact on the facility side?
Are you growing a project from 15,000 square feet to 40,000 square feet?
Well, I think
Purely
You think this will
hypothetically
grow?
speaking, of course.
Do you think the scope will
No,
grow?
hypothetically speaking, but I think that's great. I'd love to see that, and we can decide as well whether or not we should tweak that as a,
Yeah,
as a
and ultimately,
format.
You could just sit there and say, if there is base information, you just sit there and say, base information is available for this. Say it's Parks and Rec. Go to the 2017 project status, here's the information if you want additional information.
assuming they update it in the 2020 or 2021.
Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's perfect.
Having people be able to get access to the information or be able to ask questions about it is, be important. But
All right, so to round off the look ahead, our 6-week look ahead. So I've got kind of an amended schedule up here. The first item, so the August 2nd meeting, we'll discuss the CIP. Then August 12th, the department heads present to the CIP. We would like to get into that meeting. Dave, should one of us reach out to planning board? You will? Okay.
Yeah, I have tonight, if it's not like.
And we're not going
maybe
to
I'll ask.
obviously look to take over the meeting. We're just looking to get in front of the department heads, ask some questions, et cetera. So, and then there's a planning board public hearing, the 26th, is that correct?
Or somewhere.
Yes,
Yeah,
26th.
we'll establish it probably at the, it may not happen exactly then, but you'll establish.
No,
it.
the public hearing will happen on the 26th, they might not vote on it.
Right, got it. So they may extend
Table
it,
it.
table it
Yeah,
to the next meeting.
yeah.
So
The
our
actual
discussion.
vote, maybe. at a different time.
Correct.
But
Okay.
the start of it, the start of the public process will be,
And our intent for the 26th meeting is to have what, like a finished report, you know, with as much as we can do between August 12th and the 26th, with our own recommendations to the planning board, and then one of us present at that?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
Or at least
maybe it's
a-
a letter, right?
Yeah, it's a
It says
letter.
that we.
Yeah, something, or memo, or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like we
like
did last year,
support
I
or
mean, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I forget what we did for the planning board last year. Did we do anything, or was it just a couple of items?
I think we sent him the letter along with, we sent him the letter which followed up Dave's changes
Okay.
to the CIP that were driven by our discussions and that sort of
Okay.
thing. And then
I
we
remember
sent.
that for the BRC, I don't remember
Yeah,
that.
We did it for the BRC and we did it for the select board.
Yeah, I
And then
remember
we
that.
argued the case in the select board about our recommendations.
Okay. All right, do we need to vote on any of that, or I think we're all in favor of that, correct?
Yep.
Or-
Yep.
Okay,
We're only on 2.a, okay?
yeah, well, that was a big one, and we,
Yeah, that's good.
I wanted to review it last time, but I didn't know the Wi-Fi password, so I couldn't bring it up on the screen last meeting. All right, so that's the end of the milestone review, thank you. So Peter, all of your hard work has paid off. This is a great framework for us to work
Yeah.
from. And
Thank you.
And it was very helpful, thank you.
Thank you.
So the next item, public safety complex, we're at the design review stage.
Yeah. There's no deadline tomorrow. I just looked at your email.
What was it?
It's the 23rd.
Oh, it's next week.
Yes. Well, you said July.
Just putting a little pressure.
Yeah, July 12th to the 22nd. Review and rank 15 proposals.
I like that.
So, and then the July 23rd meet via Zoom. But then I don't think you haven't scheduled anything
No.
yet. Yeah. Okay. No, you just scared me that it was due.
Tomorrow, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm putting it in my head tomorrow for myself, so I'm almost done. I got 2 or 3 left. So
All right.
I'm gonna finish tomorrow anyway.
Okay.
All right.
We're reviewing the interview panel, we're gonna criteria sheet. Fire dropped them off the other day because they're heading on vacation, so they did all their sheets already. And then we're gonna meet, figure out who to interview, and then, select probably 3 to 5 firms to interview and go from there.
So Mark is on the hook for reviewing and submitting his rankings.
Yeah, so
That's due
It's part of
next
the interview
Friday.
panel, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
so I will take that on this weekend, and maybe we can meet up early next week. I can handle it to you.
Yep, yeah, I'd love to look at them too, that would be good.
Is it a violation of 91A for anybody else on the committee to look at what you've done? I mean, just
No,
for,
no, I
for
don't
information, just for information, not for,
Yeah.
not for.
I don't care. I mean,
No, you just can't discuss it.
oh.
Yeah.
And is it,
Well,
is
Because
it,
everyone, like planning board, everyone gets the information.
Yeah,
a week
right.
ahead of the planning board. You just can't discuss it amongst.
oh, yeah, especially anything that's sort of
Yeah.
sensitive.
Yeah,
Um,
Mark was just gonna hand them off to me, I was gonna review and just give him whatever comments I have quickly.
Right, I can share my
To him.
sheets with you, and then
Yeah.
you can add yours
Yeah.
if you want.
Exactly.
And-
You know, I mean, you can.
If that's okay.
It's not even subject to that. It's
Oh,
a
okay.
processism. We're not-
So we can throw in our 2
Yeah,
cents.
right, we're not a committee.
If we really think something's really important, we could throw in our 2 cents.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we're just trying to get down to the finalists,
Yeah.
too, right?
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
we're
there'll
just
be.
Oh, you owe
Interview
2?
selection.
Yeah, yeah.
Two, just
There's
two?
15
No.
proposals.
Oh,
We're
okay.
trying to figure out who to interview.
So,
Because we can't interview 15 firms.
of course.
Right.
So we're
Yeah.
gonna interview, usually somewhere between 3 and 5. And we'll do those in a day. And then from there, weed out, either choose a finalist or a couple and go further.
Yeah.
I don't know what the process is after that. Just next step is get interviews done.
Is it appropriate for anybody who's not on the interview committee to see the fire criteria or whatever the chief dropped
yeah.
off?
Yeah, I did it. It's just,
Oh, okay.
It's general criteria that I use for all of them. I mean, it's just like New Hampshire familiarity with similar projects.
Yeah, yeah.
Experience of assigned staff, experience of the firm. So it's very broad. And good.
And I think that still would be
No.
helpful.
Oh, yeah, I can share that.
Thanks.
All right, anything else on that item? I don't think so.
Well, Dave, do you want to, I'm just looking at your email you sent to us. Do you want to share the time frame? Or you want me to share it since I have it in front?
Yeah.
So the idea was to use early August, set up one day to complete the interviews. Early August, meet again to finalize. Late August, September, bring the contract to select board for consideration. September, start the analysis. So That's
Sounds good.
overall timeframe.
Great.
Mhm.
Subject.
Yeah.
Depending
Yeah.
on how
Yeah.
quickly the interview panel gets
Yeah.
together, select board agendas,
Right.
but it's gonna be, that's why I like to stick to that.
So the fall, I mean, ideally the fall,
Yeah.
start analysis.
Yeah, and it's way premature to suggest any kind of notional report date.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think at least one proposal I read or a couple did put like dates, like what they assumed.
Deliverables, yeah.
Like how long it would take and, it would be around, if it started in September, I'm thinking, early 22.
Yeah, I was thinking like 6 to 8 months maybe. Or something.
Oh, to have the deliverables?
Yeah, they were what, 4 or 5 months, some of them said.
I didn't,
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's only a couple
Yeah.
of the proposals
Yeah.
said that,
Some might say it's longer. I mean,
Yeah, somebody say it's
Yeah.
longer, the chosen
shorter.
one may say, what have you. But I don't think, we're not trying to, try to get to we already kind of said, we're not getting to we're not gonna try to get something on the warrant. for
Correct,
22.
yeah.
It was
That's-
more to a
yeah.
longer term,
Yeah,
thinking
absolutely.
23.
Yep.
yeah, that's,
Yeah.
I was just like the CIP is 20, so you have it for 2023.
And then 2023 would be the warrant article for the actual building. Or who knows?
Potentially.
Who knows? Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, if it
could
goes
be-
there.
It could be
yeah.
design and development.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, it could be design or
Yeah.
design,
Yeah.
yeah, right, so you're saying.
Yeah, whatever the next,
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, if it's ready, say, April, May of next year, then it kind of starts to fit into the CIP process. For the
Yeah.
following
Yeah,
year.
right.
So I
That would
think
be the
that
last
works
thing
out
you'd want
pretty
then,
good.
right? I mean, you'd want it no later than
May.
now, than May, right?
I would think so.
Yeah.
May or maybe June. Well, I guess when did you first craft the draft CIP?
Like,
Like in
May.
First of all, you
April,
want to sit there and say,
April.
for this, the question would be for this one, it's going to be for us, is that, do you fund anything for 2022?
right.
That's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
the big question is ultimately,
But how would you be able to this process for 2022?
unless you sit there and say, we wanted, that the next phase of this would be, say you wanted to go to design. Do you put in, $500,000 for design? You have a number,
Yeah.
everybody who's gonna read these notes or read questions, but somebody, some number that goes in there to say this represents an initiation of the project, for that.
Then you get caught on based on what?
Yeah, we would have to discuss that just because they might approve the design and then we get the design fully fleshed out and brought to warrant article and people reject it.
Well, but also we'd have to be doing that right now. Right, we could,
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, that would be part of that's part of the August 2nd.
Yeah.
And discussion is ultimately, would we want to recommend that there is at least some dollars in the 2022 budget that allows you to not lose a year after you finish this phase?
I would say no, just because we want to go through the public approval process before we try to not sneak, but inject any money into that.
Well,
Well,
it's
this
the
is
only thing
coming
that I would say
CIP
is I
process.
wish that we had proposals for this stuff, is that we would, if there was, what was our quotes budget for, 100,000, what was it for the So say that for 100,000 we got this, for 200,000 we get this, and then we would say, we'd ask for that 2022 CIP for this, to get that next step if we do it those proposals. You know what I mean?
There's time to do that, to get it on. I understand the CIP process.
Oh, the warrant, I got you. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But we got plenty
Yeah.
of time to years, if that's what we want.
I got you, that's
There's,
right.
there's multiple avenues to
Right.
to do that.
So the issue is that it's the January timeframe. In fact, if this assessment
Yes.
is done in early 2022, which is like the third week of January is the budget vote.
Well,
But we're
by the
gonna-
planning board. I
But
mean,
we're
by
gonna
the
know,
select board.
we're gonna
Right.
know what Mark says, like,
Yeah.
6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying ultimately, part of the RFP is to provide cost estimating for.
Oh, yeah.
Correct, so I think that part of that cost estimate should include base understanding of the fee, right?
Yeah, so it's a really good point, Ron. I was confusing the CIP with the warrant article process, but I mean, I forgot that you could do it at the warrant separately. So, but we could be to a point in January if this thing goes really well in the fall, right? So that there's enough information there. I mean, I think it's a really good for us to keep in the back of the mind that as we go through this process, something comes up that says, you know what, we should really get more information, and maybe it's a $50,000 line. That, I think it's a good point just to bring up that we kind of
I think we need to be aware of that as far as because if this thing goes a year
Yeah,
and there's no activity, I'm saying like nothing,
yeah,
because you could be, we identified a property and we want to go and do a feasibility on that piece of property, or we're going to do anything in more detail. The issue is you need to have some funding to move that sequentially through. And at that point, from a public standpoint, the report will have been done, so you actually have a lot of information for the public to actually weigh in on whether they want to vote for or not want to vote for going to that next step.
yeah.
Right. And I'm not certain I disagree with you, but I want to reiterate Chris's statement. You might have the report done, which gives information to the public so they can make up their mind. But we had made a point of putting in the report process the public input. And so just giving them the additional, let's say that we identify that we need 50,000 more, but without them being on board for that, the public.
Public's on board in March when they vote.
I know, but we can't afford to wait until March
Correct.
for them to shove the $50,000 down their throat, or, with all due respect, to ask them to consider the $50,000, when if they haven't been brought into the project, into the process earlier, they might knee-jerk, legitimately reject the project because they don't know enough about it and they haven't been involved as much as we would like. So we have to weigh the issue of the notional maintaining of momentum through an additional amount of money, and I'm not
I agree
with
100%.
the risk, the legitimate risk of whether the voters might not be willing to accept that additional money because they don't really know as much as they should because we haven't brought them in early enough. And the last thing we want to do is to get whatever amount of money in addition rejected. Because not only, I'd rather have a zero and maintain the momentum in some other ways than put 50,000 in to maintain the momentum and have it rejected.
It might be a way to do both, though, Peter. You know what I
If
mean?
we can.
I mean, I think that's just where I think it's a good discussion for us to keep moving. That as we get closer to the
Right.
deadlines, that where are we with the public input? And to your point, we just don't know yet. And maybe it comes to this site. There needs to be a site analysis so that we continue.
Site
just
survey.
Yeah.
Yeah, something that is
$25,000.
that maybe it's not a lot of money, but we just
Right.
don't have enough because remember we wanted 150 to 200.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Got back.
That's right.
Yeah. So they're just out of this process, and to your point though, we don't want it to be rejected right off the bat. So maybe concurrently we can do some more public input.
And I think that's going to be important when the group meets with the selected group, the selected firm, that if our goal is to hit informed voters in March,
Or before March. Yeah.
before March, that you would sit there and say, we want to have a public session by X.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least one, hopefully
My
two.
1 or 2 weeks before the deliberative session,
Exactly.
Yeah.
which is frankly the middle of January.
In fact, you could use the deliberative session as another way of,
Right.
again, further informing
Yep.
the voters,
Yep.
is that if you've got a
Yep.
captive audience that are sitting there. So
Yep.
I think that's something we should be on our minds on how we strategically look at this.
Right.
And I agree with you with that. We got to be aware of all the pitfalls of our goal is to have a successful project, and if we do something too early, it may jeopidize that
Yeah.
successful project. So
Yeah. No, but it's good. I think it's really that might help us, like you're saying, is to really drive some of these processes. That we want the public to be part of this, right? That's the whole part of this. And then
Yeah,
you're right,
we
these
need-
deadlines. Give us
yeah.
those deadlines.
Yeah, we
It's good.
not
That's
only
great.
need them to be on board, we need to be informed from them as to what their priorities are. And the last thing I would add is the $100,000 that we did get approved was probably one of the lowest margins of victory in the last warrant article
Yes.
votes as well. So
Right.
Oh, it was close.
it was
Yeah,
close.
It was 700 to 400 or something like that.
Yeah,
Or was it
like
700 or 600?
I think it was like 50-something% for
Yeah.
versus the
Where everything else
40%.
is 60s and
Yeah.
70%.
So it's already.
So that's
Close vote.
I feel like it's important to make sure we get a lot of public input in this to drive their support.
Right.
yeah, no, I think that's our goal is to
Yeah.
drive this thing to a successful vote,
Right.
and that it doesn't sit around for
Yeah.
20 years and that place doesn't sit there.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's in there for fiscal '22 and '23 ultimately become part of the conversation.
Yep.
Yeah.
If they represent in the voters' minds other valid funding requirements that need to be considered, or competition with the Public Safety Center, or both.
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
Okay, yep, so I think to summarize, we will keep our eye on it throughout the process if we feel like we might need to ask for more money, not for a next phase of design, but to augment our feasibility study. It sounds like that would be what we would put on the warrant article. So,
I mean, I think that those, in general, high level, I think that that's correct. I mean,
Okay.
I
Yep.
think that there's more to be learned from this process to get ready for that.
Yep.
So, and we'll
Great.
see how far our $100,000 goes. Well, they don't really know our budget, right? They're gonna come in all, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Figure it out.
I'm just, I'm kidding, I know they know what
Well, I
it is.
think
99,999.
Those who did their research.
those who did the research,
Yeah, yeah.
I know,
all
I know.
public.
They're gonna,
Yeah.
Most of
right.
those people know the public process, so.
and my experience tells me 100 grand is gonna go very quickly on this. May not go as far as we would like it. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
We'll see.
Okay, so that's it for item 2B. Item 2C, Rains Farm letter, I have that in my possession. I will forward to the select board by tomorrow. I just haven't got around to it yet, but I've read the letter, I'm in agreement with it, so we will pass that along. Did anyone else have any other comments on Rains Farm activities? No? Okay. So, item 2D, facilities condition assessment. I put the select board on there just because I was thinking, well, we can have a discussion on if you guys have made any headway.
So
on that.
I'll update, and then Rob's,
Okay.
he's actually read the things that I've got to
Okay.
say as well. But as we talked last 2 weeks ago, I reached out to a firm that had contacted me, and it's Colliers out of Connecticut, I believe they are.
They're worldwide.
yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
they have an office in Connecticut.
Maybe Boston too. But anyways,
Yeah.
so the person's actually watched several of our meetings, and so had reached out to me and expressed interest. So I had talked to him on the phone, sent him a draft RFP, and shared some information. So he's provided some valuable information to us.
Very good.
And so I think, between Rob and I, Rob, do you want to go ahead?
I was gonna say, you gonna sit on it, or are you
Yeah,
gonna
so
let the rest of us in?
Yeah, right.
So just a quick summary, he looked at the proposal, he gave us a estimated fee of about 35 to 45 for the FCA portion, which was basically to go through each facility and to collect the data and kind of do the interviews, do all that stuff. And then what was unclear in our proposal was the delivery of the data. So he really wants to see clarity about whether we just want it ours says actually in Excel format. And
Oh, it does?
Yes.
I thought we also put a requirement in there that it needed to be compatible with
We did.
the DPW
Yes,
system.
exactly.
Okay.
But so there's some confusion over
Okay.
whether what we want the database to have for information and that portion of it. So he said with more information about that, they can give an idea about what that portion would be.
Okay.
So,
So he's saying 35 to 45,000 just to go through the buildings and compile.
yeah, that's for all of them.
Okay.
That was the complete list that
Right.
Dave, so Dave's, someone in your office, from the town, had gone through the list and added gross square footage,
I-
whatever.
That's what I said?
Yeah, but then I asked Dave,
Oh,
there was missing information on
Okay.
there. There was a few buildings that you didn't have
Oh,
that extra square
excellent.
footage.
Good.
So we have that. So there was quite a bit of, I can't remember what the total was, a couple 100,000 square feet. But anyways, yeah, so it was all the buildings on that spreadsheet.
Good.
So, which is the bigger ones in the town office. I think it still had the public safety complex, Parks and Rec. I think it had the wastewater,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
The new buildings and the DPW buildings. So it was good. So he also, and I think I had sent this out to everybody, but he had sent some samples. Did I forward that to you?
I didn't see
I
those.
don't believe you sent
I don't-
that.
Did
I
he
don't-
send it to you, Rob? No, or well, he had sent some information, so I won't get that out.
Okay.
But this was just you guys can take a look at that. It was just a sample of what they do and what they provide. So, I mean, like you said, they're a big company. They're into multiple
Yeah.
things.
Well, that's encouraging,
I
though,
talked
that
to you
you-
about our project too. I think this one was public safety.
Oh, okay.
But they're not-
My colleagues aren't familiar.
Yeah, so they didn't submit because it's not, when they get more into past this phase, past the study phase, they get into that, so.
So I would say that's encouraging though, because to me, the larger task would be that compilation of building data.
Yeah.
Getting it into a system to me seems like the less.
So his
onerous
question to
task.
me that I had talked on the phone was like what Rob had said. It's just there's a huge variety of options,
Yeah,
and he just needed more information about. And they only provide they have a system that they think is the best, not the best, but what they think is most applicable. And so it's a very simple, straightforward system, if I understood correctly. And so you can just go with the very extreme, or you can be this. And so that's the information that he was asking for to be able to do that.
but
So
I would think then, like for 50 to 75 grand, we could do everything that we want to do, potentially.
Yeah.
Potentially.
I mean, but you could also back off in some of those
Yeah.
buildings.
No, I think that's what this was is a good test. I think there are a couple things that, based upon his comments, that we can tighten up on the RFP, and with those tightening up, that we can really, colors, and if you get a handful of people we can send this out to and
Yeah.
get the process started. I think that this is,
Yeah, and he did say on the FCA portion, the field work and the assessment, like you see there, is really just a square foot cost.
Yeah.
And he gave me a range, and then they, based on the complexity of the buildings, would finalize those ranges.
and most of them are not very complex.
No, I'm
And what I said is
thinking
that they're
that-
not complex, but also there's a lot of good information that's already been developed,
Yeah.
which he knew about, and also, the DPW staff know all of that.
Yeah, and they have their own system that does all the new wastewater treatment buildings are on
Oh, town does?
town's a system that they use for specifically tracking those buildings.
Got it. Okay.
So should we put this in the CIP?
Well, that was one of the questions that we left open.
Well, yeah, and I've
I
got
wanna
a
get
couple
a number.
thoughts. Yeah, first we
Well, I
wanted to
know,
get
now we
a
gotta know.
number.
Right.
Well, kind of,
So-
not fully. We don't have
We
the
have
full.
a range. I mean, we probably have, so maybe if I can get back to him and say, okay, this is really what we want for the database. That was really the only thing.
Yeah, that's the
That was
open
what the
item.
question was.
Yeah.
I mean, I only read his email quickly, but if we go back to him and say, no, this is the category that we're in, I think he could give us a better number.
Yep.
And of course, we want, I would say, say a range of, say it's 50 to 60 or 50 to 65, right?
Yes.
And we want it, I think we should have a funded, I'm sorry, I interrupted you again.
No, I'm not.
Okay, I think we should have the money spread over as many years as we can live with it being spread over. So that, as in, let's say we do the FCA data collection and stuff year one, and then we do the software packaging, interactive program, whatever, the next year.
I'm gonna say this is a small one. We should
Well,
just do it all at once.
Let me
Finish your thought.
let me
Yep.
finish.
Yep.
And I'm going to play devil's advocate. Yeah, it's a small one, and it's important, and it's more important than some of the stuff that we have seen on every maintenance project list that Jeff Beck and the Department of Public Works has given us every year since, certainly I've been on this committee, and I'm willing to bet since Mark and Rob have been on the committee. But any money that we ask for is going to be viewed as in competition with either the maintenance budget of 100,000 or of all of the maintenance lines, including the 100,000, or a warrant article. Now, in our last meeting, and I think the meeting before that, I got the impression that we had sort of leaned toward going to somebody and saying we wanted X $1,000 in the budget. We didn't say whether it ought to be in the 100,000 line or ought to be a separate line. We had decided we didn't think it ought to be a warrant article. Now, I may not remember that correctly, and that's okay, because whatever the number is, we're still faced with the same question, and that is it in the 100,000? Is it above the 100,000? Is it in the same line item? Is it a separate line item, or is it a warrant article? And is it in the CIP? And all of those things have to be resolved to figure out what's the best chance of getting the money? And I don't know what the answer is in any of that, but those are the things
Well, yeah.
that we have to think about.
Agreed. Peter, to that point, I guess what I was thinking is, the first step was to try to get some rough numbers. We've got a partial rough number so far from Colliers. It'd be good to have a couple more. See which ones are in concert or not. And then from there, we need to iron out exactly how this is going to work. Not exactly, but very close. Like are we going to integrate with DPW's system? How's that going to work? And who in the city, or the town, I'm sorry, who in the town is responsible to maintain this thing? And it could be as simple as calling this provider every year and saying, hey, we're ready for you to come do an update for us. Or it could be someone in town actually inputting that information. I'd like to have that solidified, and that can entail, I can talk to Jen Perry and her data person over there to try to figure out the path forward for that. After that, then I think we need to go out and start talking to the other boards in town to find out what is the best way to finance this thing. I have no idea, but I'd be happy to go in front of the select board and talk about what we want to do, why we want to do it, how much we think it's going to cost, and how it will operate, and what the benefit to the town is. I think we have to have that all very well nailed down before we go in front of them, and then they can make some recommendations. And if there's other boards, we should go in front of. Russ would be another guy.
Well, I think Jen Perry too, right? I mean, I think
Yeah.
this is where it would fall under DPW, so she's got to be on board with it.
Yeah.
My suggestion is something that she needs to be in front of if it's a budget, an operating budget increase or a CIP. I mean, I would suggest that it's a budget increase, right? Because maybe you say that we are asking for $50,000 to do this FCA, and maybe it's only a $30,000 increase because they found 20 from somewhere else. Something like that.
Right.
That it's in the budget. Not that it's been hidden, but it's just something that is managed.
So do you think we should start with DPW before select board, or at what point?
I think so. It's going to fall. It's going to fall into their purview, right? I mean, This is a
So
DPW.
we
They
talk to
manage
them
the
first.
facilities.
Okay.
I think so.
And
I
then-
would agree that, because I think that based upon our meeting last time, is that there was probably looking at it exactly like you're saying, is if I'm going to be charged with maintaining these things, there may be some resistance. And I think that the issue is that if we can get rid of the resistance, then, and we have people on board that say, if we have something that actually supports what we do versus, another burden, right? I think
Right.
that's what we want.
Yeah.
And we also need to restate the benefit to the town. I don't know if that's fully apparent. It's just the ability to capital plan, 10, 15 years out,
Right.
and plan for expenses rather than react. to
That's what these guys were
expenses.
going to be writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
that's
elevator
something-
speech.
And Rob started it.
So, I think we're in a good period right now. I mean, obviously, people are very focused on infrastructure. They're very focused on deferred maintenance. They're very focused on the idea of what happens if you don't maintain things. So this is the time to really reinforce this notion of,
I agree.
That's why I mentioned the CIP, because the CIP is not a funding mechanism. Okay, it doesn't dictate where the money's going to come from.
It's just
It's just, you put it in the CIP, the purpose we do, we put more in the CIP than probably is needed. But like, throw it in there because we get it out to the public. We get it out, we have a description of it, it sits there. So then it goes on, and CIP items can be put in the budget, can be put on a warrant article, separate warrant article.
Yeah.
That all gets
Funding
determined
mechanisms.
through the process. So don't automatically think a CIP
Right.
is a warrant article.
Right.
It doesn't. It's just,
Yeah.
it just gets it out there, and it doesn't have any funding attached to it. It has a number attached to it. We do it for more, just for public, like, these are all the things that we're thinking of in
And
the
I
next
think by
6, 7
having an
years.
example for people to show them that, it's like anything else. If you sit there and, for most people who have, say a bank account, they can look at the fork, they can, open up their account and say, they see what's going on, activity. This is the dashboard, the activity dashboard that gives people visibility to what's the obligation of the community. And, why we should actually move some of these off the list.
Yep. And Dave, and in that regard, moving off the list, Dave, perhaps this committee needs to have a discussion with you about whether you should be throwing everything in the CIP, just to give people an idea of what might be out there, because it scares people when they look at all of that. And so the absolutely gotta haves get tarnished by the pipe dreams that are out there. Because they're not gonna go through the, it's not in the budget, it's not in the warrant. They're just gonna see, holy shit, sorry. They're gonna see, holy cow, that you know, the town's gonna be spending this, this, and this, and this. So they see more solidity to the CIP than you have explained. And I think that's a problem in trying to convince voters that the town's setting priorities. Anyway, that's a separate discussion. The question I have is, do we need to go to Russ with whatever information we have about the FCA funding and get him to buy in so that when Jennifer goes to Russ and complains why we're bothering her, Russ will say to her, I'm behind this, I want it done, cooperate as much as you can.
Yeah, that's fine. I would feel more comfortable doing that if we had the plan nailed down. We had our estimates, we had the operational
Right.
vision.
I'm not saying when, I'm just saying if you have to make a decision whether you go to Jen before or after.
Tactically, you're saying it would make sense to.
I think it would. So at whatever level of maturity you are comfortable going with Russ, and when you have that level of maturity, I would suggest you go to him first to get buy-in. If that's going to delay the whole process because you won't have that level of maturity until much later, then okay, go to Jen. If she's going to be part of that process.
Well, Jen's going to be part of the maturation process because we need to know how this is going to work through DPW to get to the point where we have a buttoned-down, solid plan.
Okay.
I
And
think.
you think you're looking for funding this budget season?
Oh, yeah.
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 2022.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 2022.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean to think, I don't think anything in there, like CIP, people might call it a pipe dream. Well, it's needed, like, there's 100-year-old water lines, it's like, they gotta be replaced.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
maybe we can't afford it.
Right,
That
right.
doesn't mean it's not a need.
Yes.
So when I was saying that, I wasn't just saying we just throw a kitchen sink and everyone's
No,
thinking.
I
was like,
understand.
But this is what I'm hearing, is an identified need by this
Right.
committee.
Yeah.
So I don't see the harm in putting it in there, but it's more transparency.
Yeah,
Yeah,
More-
no,
I got
that's
that.
It's out there,
Yeah.
out the thinking, so I'm just throwing it out.
I think that, to me, that's ultimately what a CIP should be, is a high-level forecasting tool to allow people to see visibility over a longer period of time. And it's not intended to be, pinpointing down to the fine details of what the actual costs are, but it's just that there's you've got an obligation over the next 10 years of doing blank. Yes, I agree with you, Peter. The issue is to say it's a particular project, like we're going to build a monument to something, and it's in there at $100,000 or $1 million,
Right.
and it's sitting there. So.
And I would say don't even put it in. I would say, with all due respect to Dave, that there are a bunch of high priority items that in all likelihood the town is going to be faced with doing over the next 10 or 15 years. And they're going to cost millions of dollars. And those are the ones that ought to be in the CIP. And everything else that's a nice to have or on some department wish list shouldn't be in the CIP. It doesn't deserve the status of the gotta haves that educate the public as to what should be the priorities of the town and what it's going to cost them in the future. If you put everything in, you jeopardize the good stuff. I personally believe you jeopardize the good stuff.
Well, one of the good things, Peter, coming up is, as we go and prepare for the CIP review with the planning board, is you can say which ones that you don't think warrant
Well, that's right.
consideration.
That's right.
So we'll be
I
part of
think
that process.
I think that's the beauty of the process, because I talk to a lot of people in town, and some people's priorities like water sewer, that's the priority, water sewer,
Yeah.
right? And then other people are like rec or community centers.
Yeah.
And other people are saying rec, community centers, those are right. nice to have, you know? So it's a lot of varying opinions.
Yeah,
I understand your opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you.
There's other people that
That's
think,
yeah.
you know, so
Who's
I
the
always
arbiter of
think,
what's-
who's the arbiter of the priorities? Well, that's why you put it in a plan, and then it goes through the process, and ultimately the voters.
And ultimately, it's the voters that vote, and
Yeah.
I think part of our goal is to try to give as much information that has been sorted and in a consumable way so that people can make their own educated vote on you know, voting things in or out. You know, I agree with you. That would be part of our thing, is to sit there and poke holes in something that we feel potentially doesn't represent what the community, or there's some things that are inconsistent with the industry or whatever else.
Yeah.
All right, so as I look at our milestone schedule, is it likely at all for you guys to be able to get a couple more? Well, what information do you need to go back to somebody else to nail down a rough number? Like you were talking about.
I just need to digest what he sent me.
Okay,
So
okay. So
I
as far
just need
as
to go back to him
data
and say, hey,
format-
this is the category that we're in.
Okay.
And I mean, I think the town, and I can just make some assumptions, I think the town's in a situation where they just want a very simple
I agree.
system
I agree.
that will be updated annually.
And it
doesn't
could
have to
exist on its
in a
own,
database.
potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in line with what they carry, what they
Yeah.
propose, and I think
And
it's just
when
their.
the only qualification I would put on that would be, is instead of saying Excel, I would say it would be Power BI as a link to Excel. So
Okay.
Power BI allows you to import the data in a different way, and allows you to manipulate the data at any point in time.
Right.
The reality is the town may never do it, but at least if it's inputted in a specific
Right.
way, you want to run a report, or you want to do something else, it's
Right.
Yeah, it's a
inputted in
database.
it.
It's
Yeah.
not a spreadsheet, it's
I
a
get it.
database.
The
Exactly.
deliverable,
Thank you.
the
That's-
output, the output is
Thank you.
could be an Excel, you could export it to an Excel.
It's all
Correct. You could
Right,
export to
but
Excel.
But the system is.
So that
is-
Dave could
yeah,
open it
I
like that.
totally get it, that makes
And
sense.
Power BI is a Microsoft product that
Okay.
goes with Excel, so the reality is that, you know,
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a database.
just watch, if you watch this later.
Do you need a dedicated laptop or computer, or can you?
No.
no, there's
There
there's
should
something
be
that
some
can be-
sort, yeah, the data will live in a cloud or on a town
Yeah.
server somewhere, and you can access it through a web
Yeah.
portal.
Great.
So
kind of
it's,
thing.
Yeah.
it's not
Right.
like you said, it doesn't have to be something that, you know, links up to the CPI, and, you know, it adjusts the,
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So we're gonna have our hands full with preparing for planning board and also,
The FCA.
oh, yeah, the CIP, planning board stuff. So in terms of assessment, you've got enough info to go back and get a
Yeah, I
higher
do, I'm
quote?
good, I just gotta respond to him.
Is there
just-
one or two more vendors we could check with, or?
I mean, he reached out to me, I mean, I can go back and that list, but, I mean, I don't like, I mean, I think that it's enough for us to have a number, and I think that
Yeah,
it's enough to
I
get
just
the
wanted to
RFP out.
verify it, like, hopefully it's not like a teaser rate or something.
Well, I mean, I think we have enough now.
Then
and
once he
if
looks
Rob-
at the real
that's
project,
what
he's
the
like,
RFP is supposed to do, though. It's
Yeah,
supposed to
yeah.
give us, so that we can actually get numbers from people who are, you know, or who do this, and they're
Yeah.
gonna give us a number, and then we can sit there and say, now we actually have a number, and that number ultimately is that we can parse it out by saying, we divide it up into 3, we divide it up into 2, we divide it up into, and then we ask for our funding.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line, if we just say it's at 50 or 40, say whatever it is, I mean, we can always get to that number by reducing some of the scope, right?
Exactly.
I mean, we can take some buildings out that maybe we can add in at a later year.
Potentially.
But yeah, I'm just saying, as far as, I think, my opinion, if Rob, do you have enough to update the RFP
Yeah.
based on this? We get the RFP updated, and then we should get it out. We know what range we're in.
All right, so we still want to issue that just to get numbers back.
Get proposals on
We
that.
won't be funded.
Right, and it states in the thing that ultimately would be based upon getting funding in the March vote.
Right.
Okay, which we still.
So it's not, I mean, I was talking to Russ, that it's not, November done. It's usually we go out and get the proposals, because generally proposals say, it's good for 30 days. Right. Days. We get a proposal in September, and then by March, it's like, oh, my house has
Yeah.
changed, my time has changed, my
I guess
staff has
that's
changed.
why I was-
You know, so, not how we use it, so I think Russ needs to be in on the conversation, you know, we need to have further conversation.
Well, that's why I was hoping to get like 2 or 3 numbers from different vendors, rough
Just from
numbers.
the consulting side, ultimately, the risk is their risk.
Understood.
And we're explaining and we're giving them, we're telling them what the risk is. So the reality is for them, if they're willing to wait till and hold the price. And most of the start of this really, by the time they get the proposal, it's December. By the time we get everything sorted out, it's December.
Yeah, but if you, I was thinking like September, but.
No, we've got the timeline really is.
Okay, so you're thinking, yeah.
We issue it in September.
It's already on the.
We issue it in September,
Alright.
and we get our proposal back basically in late October. We have our review process, we make a selection in December, and then they know that the vote is in March. So it's a 90-day timeline between when we select.
Are you guys willing to?
I'm not, I don't
We can't
issue,
really
I,
do that.
like, town manager is in charge of issuing
Okay,
the
yeah, alright.
RFQs or whatever, the
Yeah.
RFPs. So I, you know, I'll defer to.
So action item is, Bob, if you want to take another pass at the RFP, get it back to Dave, to you, for us, and we the timelines are in there, and it's our recommendation to go forward, and have the consultant basically lock in the proposal, if it's something, if they're not submitting to December, they lock it in to March, and then go from there.
Yeah, I would provide an explanatory memo to Russ, you know, saying why you want to do
Alright.
it at a time without the funding, and put your reasons in there, and
Alright.
I can see where it goes.
So you have to review the designers for the public safety complex, and you have to prep for CIP. So I think the rest of the month and into August is pretty full. So whatever we can do with the FCA.
Yeah, I don't.
And I'll try to drill into DPW to find out how the operational side might work. And then maybe sometime in September, we talk to Select Board and BRC just to let them know what we're.
So I guess
I'm just trying to figure out what's our.
Are you saying that you want to wait to issue the RFP before and have all this stuff sorted out before we issue it? Or what's your thought process? That's what.
Yeah, that's a good question, because I'm not sure myself. I'd rather have more nailed down before we issue the RFP, because I'm concerned that some of our discussions with DPW, Select Board, and BRC might inform different choices for the RFP. I'm not sure, it may or may not.
Different choices as far as what?
Maybe how ultimately what this tool looks like, how we use it, etc.
Well, I mean, each vendor is going to have a different system, right? So that will be part of the review process when we get, I would think that's when we get proposals from each of these firms. Colliers is gonna say, here's what we can do, another company's gonna come in and say, here's what we do, and then that would be part of the review process. That's how we did ours. I mean, each company
Yeah.
came in and had a completely different system. We selected our vendor based on multiple factors, and one of them was, what's the system that we're getting, and is it powerful enough for us, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and I guess, Rob, I don't need to have everything before we issue. We could still issue the RFP in September, I think, and get meaningful proposals back. But at some point between now and the end of the year, I think it's worth our while to make a case to the Select Board, take their questions.
I agree.
And also the BRC, because this is a tool that should help the BRC inform their process as well. So we haven't really bridged that gap with them yet, how we're going to work with them to use
And I think
this.
that could be how we engage them as part of the selection process, is have them participate in the selection process. One, it'll show them the tool, it'll show them what the value of the information, so we actually get double benefit out of it, is they get to see it more of a live thing of saying, here's why people do this. And
Yeah, right.
This isn't, this is what we're talking about.
It's not new, right.
Condo associations,
Yeah.
it's going around the country right now with every
This
single
is
one
how
of
you
these.
responsibly
They are
manage your
responsible for
capital
doing
assets.
it.
Yes.
Exactly. This is a
Yes.
responsible thing to do. This is actually what the state of New Hampshire asks each condo association, they're supposed to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're running at, it's almost 5:30.
Yeah, and real quick, just to throw some unhappy cold water on our timing. The Budget Committee will do its thing primarily in October at the subcommittee level and at the full committee level. and then they will have, in the beginning or by the middle of November, their CIP deliberations. So waiting until November is kind of too late to go to the budget committee and to convince them they need to put in, hear me out, they need to put, please, they need to put in X $100,000, X thousand dollars, for this project. And I mean, it's true that by the time you get to the select board, that's your last chance. So that could be December, it could be late November, it could be January. And that's your last chance. But if you don't get some kind of endorsement from the Budget Recommendations Committee, I think you're at a significant disadvantage in getting funding.
Well, I think this goes back to what we've already had come, which is that we write up our summary now. We give it to Dave. Dave puts it into the CIP process, and on August 16th and then August 26th, or August 12th and August 26th, it becomes part of the discussion as the CIP process, the request for X dollars to do a facilities conditions assessment for the town of Exeter facilities.
So this becomes a CIP item for
Just do it,
this
get
year.
it out there.
And then I agree, and then we can, the CIP pages can say it's bonding, or it's a warrant article, or it's operating budget. So
Yeah.
that's all identified in the CIP. But I agree. I think that's right. And we won't have all the information, Chris, at that point that you want, obviously. But we have to go with the best we can.
What won't we have, I guess?
Well, we won't have several inputs on cost, which means that we either take what Collier told us, or we take what Collier told us, and you guys who have been in the business of this do a best, worst, middle ground, back of the envelope guess, and put that in as a range.
Yeah, and I think what we have for the estimate from Collier is to sit there and say X number of square feet. The reality is we can put a number in there. The number is if it's based upon a square footage number. We can say we want to do in 2022 40,000 square feet. 40,000 square feet times the number that they have comes out to X dollars. And so
So now I'm wondering, do we need to issue the RFP then? Can we just get some rough numbers and cobble together an item for that, and then wait till we see if we get funding before we issue the RFP? And then we could say, done deal, we've got funding, back next March or April.
I think my point is that if you have people identified who know what the information is, they give us examples of it. It gives us the ability of going to somebody and saying, this is the product in which you're going to get. And so it's like buying a car that you actually know what the features are and you actually know what's going to get. So here's what they're going to get at the end of this, as opposed to a piece of paper that says, by the way, you're going to have a nice shiny car, may have some scratches. So I think, to me, having some
If we can,
information.
okay. Yeah, that makes
before-
sense. I like that idea. That's the way we prove the efficacy of it. It's-
Correct. I think we've gone through the thing. We've identified people that can
If
do it.
people are willing to do it.
Right.
So let me just ask a procedural question. So who's going to do the CIP for this? Because, I mean, a department has to own it.
Yeah, I mean,
Can,
I'll
Dave?
figure that out.
Okay.
I mean, who's,
What I was gonna do, since I was just asking, do you want?
Yes.
Wasn't saying I you know. No,
Yeah, I just-
qualify that, because I'm planning, that doesn't really come from me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? What I'm gonna do is, based on this conversation, is I'm gonna reach out to you, within the next couple, either tomorrow or
Yeah.
early next week, and I'm gonna say, okay, is this a good idea? Just what you were wanted in order,
yeah.
get you what you want.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's what I'm going to do. And if they are, then I can, put it under them. Or if they're like, well, I'd write it up and just say, submitted by the FAC.
right, and I guess we're talking
That's the
about,
second option.
well, we were talking about,
But
the department's
someone's gotta
presenting
manage
it.
it.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about the department's presenting it, and we wouldn't want Jen Perry to go up and not be able to not to have a hard end to be able to present this, and you know what I mean?
I would think
Present it
that
to
one of
Well, the whole
you
process
folks
through CIP,
would
it has to go to planning board and then all that.
Yeah,
right?
I
I'm
envision
We're-
even if they were on board, someone. from the
Yeah, we'd have to
would
make the case.
represent that.
We-
Well, I know, well, I guess that's procedure, I mean, that's where, I mean, I don't know, I mean, it just seems like that there's a committee that is now defending, I don't know, it
But
just
that
seems like.
happens,
yeah, but that's-
that happens a lot. Like
It does?
Land acquisition with the compound.
Oh, okay,
You know,
all right.
Rains
we
Farm.
can't remove
Rain-
what the
Rain-
river-
Rain-
Rains Farm.
Rains Farm.
That's right.
Yeah,
you're
so
The
right.
Conservation
there's-
Commission.
Yeah,
Oh, you just
there
said
are
that.
committees
I
that
see.
take, and then
Okay.
this fits into the process. I
Okay.
think there's no problem in this precedent for this committee to kind of push forward a project that
Okay.
they believe in and get funding.
I get, Rains
And-
Farms, I was just thinking that we have, we force DPW to put this through and their heart's not in it, and then it just starts to.
Well, we have to
peter
make
out.
sure that they don't rain on our parade as we present it. That's
No, I don't think that
the
they do
most-
that, but I think,
No.
we're the ones that have been talked, I get it now.
We're gonna have
I get
to,
you.
it's gonna be up to us to sell it. I mean,
Yeah.
really, at the end of the day, it's
Yeah,
us.
yeah, I get you.
I think the tricky part becomes with the DPW, do they have the staff to maintain, you can't,
That's-
Yeah.
I'll-
to
yeah,
follow
I'll-
through, because that's
I'll-
what you need. I mean, you
Yeah.
can get the assessment, but then if it sits up on a
Hey,
shelf, like it does
We
something
don't,
that's not.
we don't want
valid.
anything, we do
Yeah.
not want to
Yeah.
have something, that's how it all
Exactly.
started.
I honestly-
It all started with a book that, that's 2015 assessment, that was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
What good is that
I
now?
know.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's important to nail down, if we're gonna get
I
that
will talk to
commitment
Jen, when
of
you talk to Jen
implementation.
Teller, I'll reach out to her
Okay,
because
all right.
I want to talk to her and her data person about the operational
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, but I don't want people, but it's,
Yeah, we gotta go
honestly
through
though,
it.
there's so little that happens here every year that it's not gonna be a big deal to maintain this
Okay.
thing. It's
I
really
agree
not,
with that.
it's not like it's,
agree.
it's a massive campus where there's, a $15 million capital improvement program. This is where they have $100,000 to spend, right?
Yeah.
So it's gonna be, oh, we finished 3 projects this year, let's just take them up.
Yeah.
Oh, we got 3 more to go, it's gonna be very simple.
I agree.
So I just don't want people to freak out that this is a massive list.
I have to get going because I gotta.
Yeah, everything else.
But I just want to say, the library update was, Russ sent the email, and the library wants a couple of dates from the committee, and they'll schedule the architect, et cetera, to be present for a tour and answer questions.
Excellent.
All right.
Wow, great.
So
Sounds
if
good.
somehow you get me a couple of dates,
Yeah,
they
things
will
are
do
getting
that.
busy here.
Yeah, it looks like it might be a
I
little
would,
bit.
I would
retired.
suggest the library update is probably less important than this other
So
stuff.
I think we
Yeah.
get sometime in September,
Okay.
October.
Bye, Dave, thank you.
Thank
So
you,
put a pin
Dave.
in that for a month or two, I'll
Yeah,
tell
exactly.
them.
I mean,
Okay,
it's
all
not
right.
a-
We're going to adjourn here
Thanks.
anyway,
Yeah.
so.
Thanks, Dave.
Anybody, we're not going to get to everything else, so anybody have any one last comment before we adjourn?
No.
You know.
I don't know how we're
I
gonna
just
do
want
all
to get
this
the
stuff.
FCA going. We've really had the same discussions for 2 years. So.
Let me know if you want, when you're done with designer
Yes,
submissions.
yes, I'll take
for
a look
public
at this
safety,
weekend.
and then, I can get them to you if you want to take a look at them too. So,
Yeah, that'd be great.
We'll figure that out.
Um,
I do, but I'm not going to spend a lot
Yeah,
of time.
nor am I. I mean, you got the job, so,
Yeah.
seriously, I'm gonna
I
rely on your
know
expertise.
some of the firms involved, so I
Well,
just want to see what they.
I would suggest, Chris, I would definitely share with you before Peter, but when we get down to the finalists, then, maybe that when we have 5 proposals, say, then everybody can take a pass.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
we can
fine.
discuss in a meeting.
Then
Yeah,
that would be just a little bit
that's good.
easier. So, all right,
Um,
we didn't think it, are we adjourned, or?
Well, we haven't,
I had one question and now I forgot it. Wait a minute.
motion to adjourn.
Yeah,
He's getting wound up, like. he's
No, it's
winding
not.
up.
It was just something, the hell with it.
You sure?
If I remember. Yeah,
Yeah, no, motion to, no,
yeah, I.
okay.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the